When you think of British cars, you may think of the London Taxi, the Jaguar E-Type, the Aston Martin DB5, or the Lotus Esprit. But arguably one of the most famous British cars is the Mini. However, the Mini wasn't the only popular small car produced by the Brits. Today, I should explain the story behind one of the most notable small British cars, one of which in fact that was originally meant to be a replacement for the Mini. Welcome to a brief history of the Metro. In the 1970s, there had been a sort of explosion of the Super Mini market, no doubt influenced by the 1973 oil crisis. The Mini now had competitors such as the Volkswagen Polo and the Golf, the Ford Fiesta, the Renault 5 and the Vauxhall Chevette. These cars were quite popular and they gained a considerable sized market share in the UK and in the rest of Europe. British Leyland needed a new Super Mini in order to compete, therefore they began Project ADO88. However, this vehicle's design received poor feedback, so the designers went back to the drawing board. They changed the design in 1977 to make the car look less utilitarian and more upmarket. This new design was given the name LC8, standing for Leyland Cars No. 8. The LC8 would replace the upmarket clubman versions of the Mini and the lower spec versions of the Allegro. The LC8 would also use many similar components to the Mini, such as its A-series engine, a 4-speed gearbox, and front and rear running gear which was carried in steel subframes. Furthermore, it would also borrow the Allegro's hydrogas suspension. However, that's not to say these components were ancient or outdated. The A-series engine and running gear was updated with new materials, becoming the A-Plus variant. The car also featured new larger wheels and better brakes. It wasn't just the underpinnings of the LC8 that were new. The hatchback body was one of the most spacious of its time and featured the symmetrical dashboard design created by David Back and also used in the Range Rover and the Rover SD1. All the LC8 needed now was a name. So, the management at BL decided to ask the employees what they thought. The employees were given a choice of 3 names: the Match, the Metro, and the Maestro. Obviously, the name Metro won, and this was met with immediate backlash by the bus and train manufacturer Metro Camel. However, British Leyland promised to advertise it only as the Mini Metro rather than just the Metro. BL staged their launch presentation for companies and dealerships on board a cruise ship, the MS Vistafjord. Between a 3-week period in September 1980, it sailed between Liverpool and the Isle of Man. The Metro was unveiled to the public at the 1980 British International Motor Show in Birmingham. Fun fact, Margaret Thatcher was in attendance. The Metro made its official debut on the 8th of October 1980, priced between £3,095 and £4,296. And it was popular. Very, very popular. It became one of the best-selling small cars in the UK and was so popular in fact that Lady Diana Spencer purchased one. It had good handling, it was spacious, comfortable and economical. A major advertising campaign was created, a campaign that hasn't really aged particularly well. It showed the Metro defending Britain from the Polo, the Renault 5 and other foreign invaders. The ad spoke of the Metro's ability to send the foreigners back to where they came from. I'm not going to comment on that. Anyways, over the next couple of years, the Metro lineup was expanded. The sporty MG Metro was added, with the standard version having 72 horsepower, a 0-60 time of 10.9 seconds, and a top speed of 103 miles per hour. In 1982, the MG Metro Turbo was introduced due to the increasing popularity of hot hatches in the 1980s. It had 93 horsepower, a 0-60 time of 9.9 seconds, and a top speed of 112 miles per hour. Also, the luxurious Van der Pla Metro was introduced. It had lots of leather, a radio cassette player, electric front windows, a tachometer, front fog lamps, a trip computer, and a remote boot release. Beat that, Rolls-Royce. In 1984, the Metro received a facelift. It had more colour coding, a new dashboard similar to the Maestro and the Montego. It also had a new rear spoiler, which decreased the drag coefficient, increasing fuel efficiency. Furthermore, a new 5-door was introduced. The MG Metro Turbo was not the most exciting Metro though. That was the MG Metro 6R4. The Metro 6R4 was created for the Group B rally category, a category which arguably birthed some of the most exciting cars of this time period, if not in history. Designed by Williams Grand Prix Racing, the 6R4 shared very little with the standard production Metro. It was mid-engined, four-wheel drive, and had a 5-speed manual transmission. It had a 2.9-litre V6, with the road-going Clubman version having 250 horsepower and the international version having 410 horsepower. The car came third at the Lombard RAC Rally in 1985 and was entered into 4 different rallies in the 1986 season, but each time they failed to complete the course. Also, to add insult to injury, Group B was then banned. This was not the death of the Metro 6R4, however, as it was used in Rallycross, even winning the 1992 European Rallycross Championship. In 1987, production of the Austin Mini Metro was ceased. The Austin name and badge was retired, and the Austin Montego and Maestro are now simply called the Montego and Maestro, carrying no brand name but just a model name, and a Rover badge but without the name Rover, although sometimes they were still referred to as the Rover Maestro and Montego. I know that sounds quite complicated. Anyways, at this time Rover were wrapping up work on their 200 and 400 designs in collaboration with Honda. They were also working on a replacement for the Metro. They wanted to use something similar to the Austin AR6 concept car, but instead, probably due to costs, they decided to just redesign and re-engineer the already existing Metro. The Rover Metro, also called the Rover 100 in certain parts of Europe, was released in 1990. It used the new K series of engine and was available with a diesel for the first time, a 1.4 litre used in the Citroën AX and Peugeot 106. Also, it had a 5-speed gearbox for the first time, and its hydrogas suspension was upgraded. It also had a sporty GTI variant with 95 horsepower and 91 pound-feet of torque, a top speed of 113 miles per hour, and 0 to 60 time of 9 seconds, although this was slightly optimistic. The Rover Metro was quite successful, winning the 1991 What Car of the Year award, and it was in production until 1994. In December of 1994, an updated version was released. The mechanics were mainly the same, but it featured new front and rear bumpers, new sill covers, a new rear boot handle, new headlamps, a new bonnet, and a new grille. The interior was also updated in order to give it a more luxurious appearance. It had optional full leather, wooden trim, and a tinted sunroof. However, although some parts of the Rover Metro, now called the Rover 100, were new, it was still considered to be quite outdated. Its competitors had moved on. The cars which the Metro had been designed to compete with were replaced by newer, more spacious, safer and more economical models. Front electric windows were only available on the top of the range model, and rear electric windows were never available. Also not available were anti-lock brakes, power steering, or, apart from on 2 trim models, a rev counter. During the 90s there were many developments in automotive safety. Airbags were becoming increasingly common, and in 1997 Euro NCAP were founded and they began their first crash tests. This is one of the factors that killed the Rover 100/Metro. The 100 contained little safety features. It had an optional driver's airbag, some seat belts, an alarm, an immobiliser, a central locking system and side intrusion beams. During the tests, some small cars such as the Ford Fiesta and Volkswagen Polo received 3 stars, with most, such as the Fiat Punto, Renault Clio and Vauxhall Corsa and Nissan Micra, receiving 2 stars. The Rover 100's 1970 design really did show its age when it scored 1 star. Both the front and side impact tests showed severe injuries to the passengers, and during the front impact test, the passenger compartment was put under a severe level of stress and it collapsed. Later that year, Rover ceased production of the 100 as it reached the end of its life cycle and sales were dwindling. The space that the Metro left was filled by the BMW Mini and the Rover 25 or 200. Some also say that it was filled by the City Rover. Over the Metro's 18-year production life, about 1.5 million cars were sold in the UK, making it the UK's 7th most popular car ever to be sold there. Despite this, however, Metros are quite a rare sight over here today. Many of them were scrapped due to rust, Many of them were scrapped because they couldn't run on unleaded fuel without an expensive conversion. Other Metros were used as donor cars for mini restorations due to both vehicles having similar running gear, and others were stolen and destroyed by joyriders as they did not have good security. According to howmanyleft.co.uk, only 576 Rover Metros, 1,671 Rover 100s and 242 Austin Metros remain on our roads today. Take that with a pinch of salt, however, because it may not take into account all of the models. But it's still safe to say that the Metro, a car which was once a very common sight, is now a rarity. Anyway, that is it from me today. If you did enjoy this video, please do go down below, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. I do hope to see you next time. Goodbye.